A California judge is expected to rule today on what evidence to make public in the Golden State Killer case. Joseph DeAngelo is accused of at least 12 murders and dozens of rapes. His attorney says releasing all the documents could taint the jury pool. So I want to bring in legal analyst Page Pate. Joins me now to discuss. Good to have you.
Great to be here.
Thanks so much. So why release this evidence before it starts going to trial? What's the motivation there?
There's always this tension between a public's right to know about a case, especially one like this where there are many potential victims involved, and the defendant's right to a fair trial. So his lawyers are basically saying, look, the evidence should be limited to what's presented in the courtroom, and we have not had a chance yet to challenge some of these other allegations that may never be presented in court. So if everybody in the world hears about this case before it even goes to trial, then potential jurors who show up to decide the case may be tainted by that information.
It's going to be such a tough argument when you have national headlines going back decades. I mean, this story was infamous.
Yes.
How do you overcome that?
Well, I don't think they will. And basically, I think what the judge is doing now is he's getting both sides together, as well as lawyers for the media outlets, and say, look, I'm going to release some of this information, but I'm willing to redact it. I'm willing to take out certain names, certain graphic details, perhaps, to try to protect the defendant's right to a fair trial. But the public's right to know does usually outweigh a defendant's right to keep everything secret. So we're going to see something.
And when you touch on a few of the things, names or details, gruesome details that might be redacted, what are some other things that a judge may have concerns about?
It's evidence of crimes that he's not on trial for. So, you know, there are all these allegations, and no one knows yet, are there going to be more? Because other people are being interviewed. They're looking back through DNA evidence that they've gathered from other potential crimes. So if he's not charged with a crime, but the public hears about a potential crime, will they have that in the back of their minds if they come to serve on the jury for the crime that he's actually being charged with? So it's a very difficult balance.
And we heard all of the district attorneys involved here so careful about answering reporter questions about evidence.
Right.
They are really making sure that they are lock solid in their case. I mean, why do you think that is? They seem to have the link, that DNA link that they needed.
Well, that's exactly why they're doing that, because they don't want anything to come up to cause this case to be reversed on appeal. And so if you've got a very strong case, you're going to be very careful about what you say in the media. You don't want to give the defendant some way to appeal a guilty verdict. So I'm also certain the judge has probably put them under not quite a gag order, but said, look, you need to restrict what you're saying to the public. Otherwise, you could put this entire case in jeopardy.
They're listening, that's for sure.
Yes.
When it comes to this DNA technology, it's fairly new.
Right.
How has it stood up in court so far?
So far, it has stood up, but I do expect Mr. DeAngelo's lawyers will challenge it. There's a process that you go through before trial if you want to challenge particular scientific evidence to show that it's reliable, that it has a bearing on this case, that it's relevant to the charges. So we'll see a lot of pretrial motions, and I anticipate that will be one of them, to challenge the use of the DNA evidence.
It's my understanding he hasn't entered a plea yet.
That's right.
Do you think that means there's still a plea deal on the table?
That's possible. Whenever you have a case like this where there's strong evidence, you want to avoid a potential life sentence, a death penalty, then perhaps the state and the defense can work something out. But given the number of victims in this case, to get everybody on the same page and to work this out, I think that may be difficult.
I guess the million-dollar question is really, could there be other victims out there?
Oh,
we know
absolutely.
He's accused of 12 murders, at least 50 rapes.
Yeah.
What do you think the likelihood is that as we go through this trial, as more evidence, as more people see this trial, since it's been since the 70s and 80s, since it was really in the spotlight, that more people will come forward and say, hey, this is what was suspicious. It will link him to other things possibly.
I think there's a good chance of that, because in this case we have so many different jurisdictions involved. It's not like the crimes were focused on one particular city or one particular county. We're going to many different jurisdictions, some large, some small. So, you know, many of these records are not computerized. They're still in paper form. You've got detectives going through cold case files. I could certainly see new charges being brought.
Also interesting. Page Pate, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Len.
You take care.